I'd like to call the meeting to order, the September 3rd regular Town Council meeting. And if you're able, if you can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councillor Buganski. Councillor Lewis. Present. Councillor Balboni. Present. Councillor Carey. Mayor Delnicki.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Present.
Councillor King. Here. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Present.
Councillor Pendleton.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Mayor's remarks. I'd like to welcome everyone back from the summer break. And at this time, I'd like to recognize just a few dates in September that we have coming up. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day. It's a moment that serves as a powerful reminder that there are steps we all must take in looking out for loved ones, the people in our community, and those who have been impacted by this leading cause of death. Although not a federal holiday, September 11th is Patriot Day, a day of service and remembrance. On September 12th is National Police Women Day, is celebrated each year. The day acknowledges and celebrates the contribution of female police officers who enforce law and order around the country. Today, only roughly 10% of the police force in the United States is made up of women. However, here in South Windsor, we have 46 sworn officers and 17.4% are women. Comes out to 8. Also, on September 12th, please join the South Windsor Parks and Recreation for a free concert featuring Shaded Soul Band. There will be food trucks, illicit brewing, and local vendors. The event is taking place at Nevers Park at the Farmers Market location. The gates open at 4 p.m. Food service starts at 5 p.m. and the concert begins at 6 p.m. through 8 p.m. Okay, moving on to item 5, Councillor King, adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt the agenda as written.
Second. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, changes? Councillor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make a friendly amendment, I guess, for 13M. It reads discussion item, process for removal of members from a board or commission, and says it was requested by Councillor Balboni. That is not exactly what I was requesting. I believe Councillor Carey and I both have asked for the looking into or forming a committee about the reorganization and consolidation of boards and commissions. And I'd like to have a discussion on that instead. I wasn't concerned about removing people. I don't think we have enough volunteers as it is that we should necessarily be concerned about removing them.
Okay, we have a friendly amendment. You accept that friendly amendment, Councillor King?
That's fine. Just for clarification, Councilor Balboni, you're saying instead of process for removal of members, you would like to have a discussion about the reorganization of members? Or you were saying you didn't want that at all?
No, I'd like a discussion about forming a committee to review the
Okay.
overlapping and whatnot. Like I said, we talk more about it when we get there.
Got it. Okay. Accepted. Thank you.
Okay, motion to accept the agenda as amended.
The only thing, just point of clarification, just because the regular meeting it says Monday, September 3rd, today is actually Tuesday.
Oh.
Just at the top right, that's all.
I got one more.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about that. I also wanted to bring up the readings. We used to, if I remember correctly, just read.
Correct. We're going to be doing it that way.
We're going back to that. Okay, never mind. I removed that request.
Okay. We had a motion and a second on the adoption of the agenda and as amended. We have a
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 6, communications from the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To start with my written report for all of you, as was requested by the town council, the town has launched the Rumor Buster on the town website. This page offers a place for residents to ask questions regarding rumors they hear on the street and get factual answers for the from town officials. The questions and answers will be posted publicly for everyone to see. If you would like to submit a rumor, you can email rumorbusters@southwindsor-ct.gov. To view the actual rumors, you can actually visit our town website, /rumorbusters. Additionally, as the town council had requested in terms of the manager minute videos, the town has started to launch the manager's minute video. The goal is to provide residents with a behind-the-scenes look at the running of the town departments, new projects, and services offered in town. Our hope is to issue a video every week on Fridays. So keep a lookout on Facebook for those. In terms of the smoking ban, in July, the town council officially passed a smoking ban ordinance on town properties. The Parks Department is having signs made and will be posting them at parks with both no smoking signs and smoking zone signs. The police department has been notified for enforcement purposes, and actually I saw today those signs have already been posted, so that's well underway. And then lastly, in terms of National Night Out, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the police department for another successful National Night Out. While many other departments canceled due to weather, ours continued on with great success. It was a wonderful opportunity for the community to not only interact with our officers, but also to explore equipment from many of the town departments and enjoy some snacks and a lot of fun. A couple items that I don't have in my written report. First off, I sent to the council a letter that we received back from OSTA. I think as everybody remembers, OSTA came out in regards to the governor's highway neighborhood, saying that we needed to increase the speed limit in that neighborhood after their review associated with trucks. We wrote back through our legal traffic authority, which is the chief of police, and asked that they reconsider that, and as all of you received in that letter, that has been granted, so the speed will not be increased in that neighborhood. Also wanted to address, I know a number of residents have reached out to myself, as well as the mayor and some of the others in the room, related to noise that they're hearing in the middle of the night, and like a loud thumping noise. It seems like it's a continuous beat. That noise is coming from the city of Hartford, related to different events that are happening over there, whether they're kind of, certain individuals have decided they're gonna have pop-up parties or whatever's going on. Also, I think the city council in Hartford actually approved an event that went on pretty late at night, and those noises are traveling over to the town of South Windsor when it is that quiet. We've reached out to the Hartford Police Department to try to get them to enforce their noise ordinance, and I am aware that they have issued some citations to certain individuals who had unsanctioned events as a result. That being said, I think it's important for residents to know that if they are hearing hearing noises at night like that, and it's a nuisance to them, they certainly can, and they probably should, call our local police department to let them know, because that's really the only way we're going to be able to document what's actually happening. And the number to call the police department in those events is 860-644-2551. A couple other items. Our collections report, which came out today, in terms of the overall collections for 2022 at this time of the year was 54.37%. This year for 2023, grand list, we are at 54.8%. So we're actually doing a little better than we were last year, and we're well on our way to a 99% collection rate. I also wanted to just make note that I did send out the letter to Governor Lamont related to Eversource's increase in electrical costs. In that letter, we highlighted the fact that the town of South Windsor has had a 20% increase in its electrical costs alone. That's just for town operations. And we can only imagine what that has done as well to our residents throughout the community. In that letter, we urged the governor to have a special session to actually address this issue with the legislature and hopefully do something to find some relief for both our residents and our community at large. Last item I wanted to bring to all of your attention is the Plan of Conservation and Development, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and adopted. That version of the POCD is on the town website for all of you to review and take a look at. The town council does have the option to pass a resolution supporting and adopting the Plan of Conservation and Development as well, but you do not have to do that. So you have the option to do it, not do it, however you'd like to move forward. And that's all I have in my report.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple things. I was gonna bring up the noise complaint. I live on like the Ellington side of town, and I camped out with my daughters last week before school started, and I thought I was going crazy. Till 3 in the morning. I was standing up, walking around my backyard, like, what is going on in my head? And then I saw someone posted a video yesterday, and that was exactly what I was hearing. So it is good to know that we can report to our own police department. I just want to know, at what point can we escalate it to where it will be enforced? Because I think I saw on the video the police were there and almost just like acting like security guards. So
my understanding of the video, that was a sanctioned event from the city there. So, that's why that probably was going on
Right.
in that scenario.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones that have occurred, I believe it's not the same. So.
Sure. Well, I guess we just urge the residents to, let our police department know. That way we can document it as much as we can, because that's pretty crazy that the sound is traveling from Hartford
Sure,
all the
and I
way
think
to
it's
our
important
town.
residents should expect, if they do call our police department, they probably are gonna forward them on to the Hartford Police Department as well.
Right.
So that way they could make those reports in both places.
Sure. And then I do want to say that I think it's great, the manager's minute video. I think it was Molly that was on the last one. I think it's good for the town to see, not just, pictures that are posted. I think it will probably capture more people's attention and really let them get to kind of see the people behind it. So I appreciate you doing that. And then I do want to also commend the National Night Out, myself and my now family of 5. We really enjoy that event. So it was amazing as always. We had a great time. So thank you to the South Windsor Police Department and everybody else involved.
Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your report, Mr. Maniscalco. The only question I have is in regards to, now that we're back to school, and I probably would not have noticed it except for the fact that it seems like now a lot of towns are doing it, is how much does it cost for us to put those lights up where if somebody needs to walk across the street, like we have said, Mill on the River, that's one since I live right there, you can see it from far away, only because we have a couple of places near our schools where those lines are, but there aren't those lights. And so I'm just wondering, how much does it cost in order for us to at least put them up near our schools so that when because we have a lot of students that are walking now, because I think that would be huge, because I know the difference it's made by Mill on the River, because again, you can see it from, I don't know the yardage, but you can see it. As soon as it's blinking, it stays on. So even if somebody's not there, cars still stop, and I think a lot of towns are starting to do that. And so I would love to see, if it's financially feasible, especially by our schools where students are just whatever, especially because they're walking with their phones or whatever else. But if the light is on, we're still going to stop.
Sure. I know the light at Mill on the River, for example, that one, that's a state road, so that was done by the state. That's a slight issue with that one. I don't know the cost off the top of my head, but I can certainly look into finding out what that cost is and letting everybody know. I think the bigger challenge is probably going to be less cost and more about the, I'm going to mess this up, it's the Manual on Uniform Traffic something, MUTCD, I think it is. And, whether that actually allows for the use of flashing lights in those locations.
Oh.
So we would need to, we do try to follow that pretty strictly in order to, have uniform traffic management measures throughout the community, but also that is an item that's typically looked for when we apply for certain grants and other things like that, that we follow those types of standards. So I just don't know if those signs in those locations would fit in or not. We'd have to find that out.
Okay, cool. If you could bring that back, that would be awesome.
Can do.
Thank you, sir.
Counselor Balboni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco, for your report. The rumor busters, has anybody sent anything in yet?
I have not received anything yet.
Okay.
And I know there's rumors in town. There have to be.
There's plenty of them, I'm sure. The manager's minute, I didn't get to see it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad Deputy Mayor Syracuse talked about it. A couple questions from different residents. Do we know anything about what's going on at the corner of Mohegan and Felt?
Felt. No.
That's
But
been may I answer? That's been an ongoing issue since 2016.
Wow, okay. I just saw somebody bring it up and someone mentioned it to me. Something about a big sign there and some sort of
Correct.
surveillance or
And
something going on. That's a little
correct.
strange.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The other thing that had me a little concerned is our turnover lately here in the town with department heads and employees and whatnot. And I was wondering if there's any way we could, I don't expect you to answer right away, but some sort of a report that shows the turnover of department heads and employees over the last 10 years, because I feel that we've always had a pretty stable employment here with very low turnover, and I just hear more and more what's going on here in the town, and without the exit interviews that we don't seem to be able to have, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and maybe get a 10-year track record year by year of who's departed the town.
Sure.
Thank you.
I can tell you that, yeah, we haven't been doing exit interviews because that's been the advice of our labor attorney to date. That being said, I think it's important to note that for the most part, almost every single individual that's left, we're pretty well aware of why they've left. And for the most part, overall, it's for similar jobs, making more money.
Again, it may be something for rumor busters.
As of recent, at least, but sure.
Counselor Lewis, did you have your light on earlier? I did. Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's one more thing. I know it's crazy to think that we're approaching the holiday season. A couple residents had mentioned now that most people are ordering Christmas and other holiday gifts on Amazon, and we only have recycling pickup every other week, the cardboard seems to pile up around that time of year. There were some suggestions from folks that had called me talking about the potential of seeing what the possibility would be to have an extra cardboard pickup or something like that if our recycling provider would do that, or I don't know the legalities behind this, but another person mentioned potentially the town allowing folks to throw their cardboard in town receptacles, and obviously I think most of them are covered by video, so like a good faith type of thing where opening up to the residents to get rid of your cardboard, because not everybody has a big garage where they can pile things up, and I thought that was a pretty relatable thing for everybody. We just all seem to have boxes everywhere that time of year, so if you can kind of speak on that
I'll have
a
to
little
talk
bit.
with All Waste about whether we could do that or how we could do that.
I'm sure
so.
some town with them is doing something, whether you, kind of like we do the bulk pickup, where you bundle up all your cardboard, maybe a couple weeks before the holidays, maybe do it twice or something like that. That'd help a lot of people.
Sure.
Seeing nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Moving on to item 8, public input, item 7. I'm skipping my numbers. See, I'm out of practice, that 1.5 months off. Item 7, public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speakers shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any persons. The speaker may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to come forward for items on the agenda? Come forward. You want to speak for public input? But you had your hand, so.
I wasn't
And if
sure
you
if you were looking behind me or to me.
If you can sign in too when you get a chance.
I did already.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I did already behind me. My name is Karen Johnson, and I'm with the Down to Earth Garden Club. And I'm here to add any other information that you may want or questions that you may have in the renaming of the Butterfly Garden to the Betty Garris Memorial Butterfly Garden. So that's all I have to say. If there's any questions or,
Well, during public input, there's no back and forth, so,
okay, well, I'm here to support
okay,
that.
great.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Karen. Sure, come on. I think that you have to turn the microphone, if you can hit the button on the bottom. Yep, there you go, it's on.
Okay.
And if you can say your name and sign in, please.
Yep. My name is Robert Tower.
Last name, please, again? You got to speak into the microphone.
Pardon?
You got to speak into the microphone.
You can actually move the
You can
microphone will
You can move
slide.
the mic down a little bit.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Isaiah 72 Paper Chase in Southwinder. Been here a proud 40 years ago. I submitted a petition recently.
Now, this is for items that are on the agenda.
Pardon?
This part of the public input is for items that are on the agenda.
Well, I was told it was going to be on the agenda tonight. But I don't see it. But
That-
I'm really more here just to get accustomed to the procedure, the process. I'd like to see it right through to the end and hopefully get something positive out of our effort. So it's not going to be, can somebody tell me maybe the status of that whole project? I mean, there's no news, there's nothing going on. It's a very clandestine, quiet thing going on. It seems like somebody's trying to sneak in the high grass and get a cell tower right in our neighborhood.
You're speaking of the petition for the tower up on Barbara Hill?
99 Dart Hill.
Dart Hill. Yes, we have the copy of the petition and everything, but it is not on the agenda.
Okay, well, how often do you meet, weekly or monthly?
There's an item towards the end of the meeting where you can come and speak about anything. So if you wait a little bit longer, you'll have a chance to speak for 5 minutes on whatever that's on your mind. But for right now, it's just for items on the
that are
agenda.
on the agenda. So if you don't
But
see
tonight,
it,
you'll have an opportunity.
This-
Yeah.
Maybe it's my hearing, but this room's tough with the echo.
yeah, so if the item was on the agenda, you can speak now, but for items that are not on the agenda, in particular your petition, which was approved by the Siting Council, that cell tower, you can speak on it at item number 15.
16?
15, 1-5.
Madam Mayor, if it's okay, why don't I walk to the back of the room with this gentleman and I can explain it to him and that
Okay,
way,
all right.
if that's okay.
You wanna
If you're
speak?
okay with, I'll show you where.
So 15's later?
Yeah, here.
Okay. Well, no problem. Oh. Sorry for the interruption.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward at this time for any item that is on the agenda? Going once? Going twice? Okay, moving on, thank you. Moving on to item 8, Councilor Lewis, adoption of minutes of the previous meeting.
I'd like to make an adoption for the approval of the July 15th, 2024 Town Council regular meeting minutes.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, changes? Nothing, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 9, communications from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know I have enough to read tonight already, but I was asked to read this as well from the Public Building Commission. At the August 21st, 2024 Public Building Commission meeting, there was a discussion on how best to move the Park and Recreation Department facility project forward. At September 5th, 2023 meeting, the council created 2 resolutions. One dissolving the town council formed Park Recreation Facility Planning and Implementation Committee that had previously reported their findings of various sites for a new Parks and Rec Department facility, and 2, tasking the PBC with identifying, studying, and recommending a location for the Park and Recreation Department offices with input from the Parks and Rec Commission, Parks and Rec Department, and in cooperation with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Since that time, close to a year ago, Park and Recreation Department has moved their operations to the old Orchard Hill School. The Director of Parks and Recreation, the Town Manager, and members of the Park and Recreation Commission had previously made a list of needs, wants, recommendations, and improvements that would meet the current and future needs of the Parks and Rec Department. Based on input from Clay Major, Walt Summers, and other town officials, it was clear that the existing Orchard Hill building was not to code for building egress, accessible bathrooms, change of use upgrades, generator backup power, and an elevator to the upper and lower levels that would be needed. The PBC was directed to focus solely on the existing Orchard Hill building and site to fit the programmatic needs of the Park and Recreation Department. The PBC hired Tom Akari with the architectural firm QA&M and Charles Worthington with Colliers to assist in making recommendations. On July 5th, 2024, PBC Vice Chair Kathy Doherty, Tom Akari, and Charles Worthington made a presentation to the Town Council with their vision of a 3-phase plan. Phase 1, using the existing building, bringing the building to code, and make changes as recommended by programmatic needs report provided by the Parks and Rec staff. This also included a new roof, heating, cooling system, etc. Phase 2 was a gymnatorium, and Phase 3 a pool. The PBC now requests time on the October 21st, 2024 Town Council agenda to come back with more details on Phase 1 through 3 to include a cost estimate. In addition, there seemed to be an appetite to take Phase 1 and do only items that are essential to building upgrades, code-related improvements, and programmatic needs that fit within the existing building. Is this the type of costs you are looking for? Should the 2023 resolution be amended to accurately reflect these changes?
Thank you, Councilor Balboni. Any other? Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last month, I attended the Parks and Rec meeting and want to report that the SEAL swim team has wrapped up the season. The junior and senior team went to the championship where senior division champion came in first place and the junior division came top 3. Director Keys mentioned the SEAL's new swim team captain, Charlie Keene, has been a great addition to the team. They had their final concert the final concert of the summer season will be concert in the park at the Farmers Market site on September 12th, 2024. The band performing on September 12th will be the Shaded Soul Band, and the event will include food, drinks, and vendors. Free Friday Flicks and Drive-In movie were not available to run this season because of rain. Final Free Friday Flick will be October 4th, 2024, and the movie will be Goosebumps. A disc golf course is still in development at Lawrence Park and hopefully will be wrapping up this fall, and it looks good if you've driven by it. Jennifer Filer has resigned as Assistant Director of South Windsor Parks and Recreation. South Windsor Parks and Recreation thanks Jen for her years of commitment and service. Stepping into that position effective August 5th, 2024, is former South Windsor Parks and Rec Department Aquatic Supervisor Nathan Foley. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. Any other boards and commissions? Seeing none. Item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none. Moving on to item 11, consent agenda. Councilor Buganski.
Motion to approve 11A1 and 11A2 as a first reading on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Demetrian and Mr. Trachtenberg for agreeing to serve the town.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Moving on to 11B, Counselor Lewis.
Motion to approve 11B1 and 11B2 as second reading on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and same thing, I want to thank Mr. Kupchunas and Ms. Burnham for their willingness to serve the town.
Thank you. Seeing nothing further, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, moving on to 11A, miscellaneous, having none. Moving on to item 12, unfinished business. There is none. Item 13, new business. 13A, Counselor Buganski.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Elena Poma as a member of the Board of Education. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Elena Poma from the Board of Education effective August 7th, 2024. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Elena Poma for the time dedicated to serving the community by membership on the South Windsor Board of Education.
We have a
Second.
motion. Is that you, Counselor Lewis? We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to thank Elena Poma for the time that she served on the Board of Ed, and just thank her for her time, and I wish her well.
I'd like to second that as well. Elena, we ran together, and it's sad to see that she had to leave her position, but moving on with work commitments and family, totally understand. So I wish her the best. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Moving on to 13B, Counselor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution appointing Miguel Proano as a member of the Board of Education. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Miguel Proano as a member of the Board of Education for a term ending November 10th, 2025, to replace the unexpired term of Elena Poma. Consideration of this motion is postponed until the Town Council's next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Counselor Balboni? Okay. Just want to make sure. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Moving on to 13C, Counselor Fitzgerald.
Resolution approving one early voting location for the November 5th presidential election. Be it resolved that the Town of South Windsor Town Council approves the recommendation made by the registrars of voters to designate one location for the conduct of early voting for the presidential election on November 5th, 2024.
We have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only inquiry that I have is just to make sure that everybody knows where that location is. It's here, correct?
The location, yes.
Yes, okay. Just because it doesn't say, it just says that we're going to designate one location, but it doesn't say where that location is actually going to be. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Counselor Fitzgerald, if you can do the following one again, since you did the previous.
Sure. Resolution approving an emergency contingency plan for elections. Whereas, according to State Statute 19174A-1, an emergency contingency plan for elections must be instituted by each municipality. Be it resolved that the Town of South Windsor Town Council approves the emergency contingency plan attached hereto as Exhibit A.
Do you have a second? We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Counselor King?
Just for clarification, for the video, it's statute 9, not 19. all good. 9-174A-1, just for the record.
Thank you, Counselor King. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to item E. Counselor Lewis.
If I may, I'm going to, as I have two family members on the fire department, I'm going to recuse myself for this.
Okay.
Resolution.
Hold on, so
Okay.
count down, Counselor Lewis. You have to wait.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And, okay, go forward.
Resolution setting a time and place for holding a public hearing to receive citizen input on the fire department tax abatement ordinance. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 8 p.m. the Town Council Chambers at the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on an amendment to ordinance number 225, South Windsor Volunteer Fire Department Tax Abatement Ordinance, and as more fully described in Exhibit B.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, I think. Yes, 13F, Counselor Buganski.
Resolution approving a tax abatement with Rycon Properties LLC, 470 Governor's Highway, AKA Commercial Storefront. Whereas the Town of South Windsor's Tax Partnership Program, established pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes Section 12-65B, is intended to encourage the development and expansion of quality businesses in town through tax and other economic incentives, and is designed to retain and attract businesses that will generate substantial additional tax revenues and employment opportunities for the town while providing quality goods and services. And whereas the South Windsor Economic Development Commission recommends, pursuant to said program, that a tax assessment agreement be offered to Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, Inc., 470 Governor's Highway, as an incentive to expand the existing facility by 6,750 square feet. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council is offering a tax assessment agreement between the town and Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, reducing the real property assessment by 50% the first year, 40% the second year, and 30% the final year. The estimated tax benefit reduction for the new facility will total $28,223 over the 3 years, commencing with the grand list following the date the certificate of occupancy is issued, provided, however, that if such assessment is changed by any future town evaluation, and be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council's offer to Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, is conditioned upon Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, 1, meeting the estimated $1.3 million construction estimate provided and agreeing to the estimated assessment figure, and 2, continuing to pay the real estate taxes on the facility for a minimum of 10 years from the date of the certificate of occupancy, is issued. If Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, fails to meet either of these conditions, Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, shall refund the Town of South Windsor all of the tax benefit reductions it has received, and be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council's offer is contingent upon Rycon Properties LLC, Commercial Storefront, execution of a written agreement reflecting the terms set forth in the resolution and such other.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We are going to skip over item 13G, since we have not had our public hearing yet. We're going to move on to item 13H. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. resolution approving an agreement with the town of Windsor for an acting director of health. Whereas the Windsor Health Department is a government entity providing public health services to the town of Windsor, and whereas the South Windsor Health Department is a government entity providing public health services to the town of South Windsor, and whereas the South Windsor Health Department is in need of services of an acting director of health due to a vacancy in the director of health position, as more particularly described herein, and whereas each party to this agreement desires to establish provisions for the commencement of acting director of health services until South Windsor has been able to appoint a qualified director of health. And now, therefore, be it resolved that for good and valuable consideration, the parties mutually agree as fully described in Exhibit C attached hereto.
Do you have a second? Any discussion?
What was that?
Gee, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know it says here, until South Windsor has been able to appoint a qualified director of health, but just for clarification from Attorney Corella, that once Mr. Maniscalco hires an acting director, this resolution dissolves, correct?
I gotta take a look at the agreement, actually. Is this the
Okay.
same?
This is just a draft.
That's a draft? That's what this,
That's what that is.
I believe that's the intention, once that the town of South Windsor hires a full-time public health director.
So we're not still bound to
Not still
utilize
bound
their
by this,
services?
right.
And then, I guess to Counselor Balboni's point earlier, you know, the young lady that we had serving, I was really impressed by her, and it's sad to see her go. So I would also like to kind of see what that turnover has looked like, because it is, I like to think South Windsor is a great place and should be a great place to work. So it is kind of a shame to see someone like her go, because I know she just got, I don't know if it was nationally recognized, but she got some pretty big certifications there. So hopefully we're able to fill that spot soon. I guess, Mr. Maniscalco, have we had any interviews yet, or anybody interested?
So the positions announced, we're accepting applications currently.
Okay.
To kind of explain what's going on with the Director of Health position, because it is a slightly different position than some of the other ones that we do have. We're required to have approval from the Department of Public Health prior to being able to actually submit, have somebody permanently as a Director of Public Health for a municipality. So it has to actually go to the Commissioner's office to get signed off on. That individual has to have a master's in public health, I believe, and they have to have also some type of experience sitting in the actual position. So it's not an easy job to fill, first of all. Second of all, the Department of Public Health comes down on municipalities and pretty hard when we do have vacancies, in terms of trying to get us to partner with certain municipalities around us in an effort to try to get us to, you know, have some type of an acting individual in that position that can sign off on permits and things like that. That's what this agreement is for. It was recommended by the Department of Public Health that we work with Windsor, since we're in the same mass distribution area. And we've tried to work with them and have worked with them in the past when there's been certain issues like this that have come up, and we've done vice versa for them. So, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is just get this to meet the requirements of the Department of Public Health. We're receiving applications as we speak. Once we review them and determine who's actually qualified, that'll meet the qualifications of the state that we can send to the Commissioner of Public Health to get signed off on, then we can move forward and actually conduct interviews. So it's not as easy as finding somebody who has some general knowledge. There's some pretty stringent requirements. And I think if all of you remember the young lady that did fill the position prior to this, we put a lot of time and energy and effort into her actually being qualified by the state. I want to say, spent over 1.5 years in terms of time and energy while she finished up her schooling, finished up her experience, working with the state, trying to get them to approve her prior to her deciding to take another position. So it's not an easy position to fill, but we're trying to get there. So.
Okay, and to that point, obviously, the individual at Windsor has that stamp of approval from the Department of Public Health. So this resolution, it makes it
Yeah,
effective.
we wouldn't be able to do this if they didn't.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any further discussion? Counselor Buganski?
Thank you. The agreements for, sorry, Mr. Maniscalco. The agreements for 60 days, you really think we're going to find a qualified candidate in that time frame?
That's our hope, but we might have to extend it, you know.
So I guess, so my follow-up to that, is there already some discussion with Windsor in place that you would extend it on whatever, 2-week or 30-day, some?
There's been some conversations
Yeah.
about that already, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to 13I, Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee's recommendation to name the South Windsor Public Library after Mary Etter. Whereas the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee met on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, and discussed the naming of the South Windsor Public Library in honor of Mary Etter. And whereas Mary Etter had served the South Windsor community as the library director for 38 years. And whereas the subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend to the Town Council that the South Windsor Public Library be named in honor of Mary Etter. Now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee recommendation to name the South Windsor Public Library, and be it further resolved that the South Windsor Public Library will be called the Mary Etter Public Library.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just think it's worth highlighting again, 38 years as the director. I don't know, how many years the folks that have other buildings in town named after them, but to me, that's a really impressive feat. So I just want to, hopefully this passes, but if it does, I want to congratulate Miss Etter for all the time and effort she's poured into our community, to our children and our families, and whoever's been able to enjoy the library for what it is, and I just think it's amazing.
Councilor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just also wanted to second everything that the Deputy Mayor said, and also wanted to kind of point out that in addition to her 38 years of outstanding service to the town, she has also been recognized, as the outstanding librarian for the New England region back a few years ago. So, I think that's a major honor to bring to this town, and I think she's very deserving of having this building named after her. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to 13J, Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee's recommendation to name the Butterfly Garden at the Betty Garris, name the Butterfly Garden the Betty Garris Memorial Garden. Whereas the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee met on Monday, August 5th, 2024, and discussed the naming of the Butterfly Garden in honor of Betty Garris, and whereas Betty Garris was a founding member of the Down to Earth Garden Club who remained active with the club for many years, and whereas the subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend to the Town Council that the Butterfly Garden be named in honor of Betty Garris, now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee recommendation to name the Butterfly Garden, and be it further resolved that the South Windsor Butterfly Garden will be called the Betty Garris Memorial Garden.
We have a second. We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion? Councilor Fitzgerald.
Just want to point out for clarification, for anyone who might be wondering where the Butterfly Garden is, it's in Nevers Park on the corner of Chief Ryan Way. And also the Down to Earth Garden Club has said that they will pay for, I believe, a memorial stone to be engraved with the new name of the garden on there, so. But I think she deserves to have this named after her.
Yeah, because I remember that was during the discussion of everything that they were willing to pay for that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And they
Thank
can
you.
work, and they can work with our Public Works Department, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Maniscalco? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to 13K, Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution adopting revisions to the naming committee policy. Whereas the naming of public lands and buildings subcommittee met on Monday, August 5th, 2024, and discussed the revisions to the public park, open space, and facility naming policy and application. And whereas the subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend to the town council the adoption of the revised public park, open space, and facility naming policy and application. Now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts the naming of public lands and buildings subcommittee revisions to the public park, open space, and facility naming policy and application attached hereto as Exhibit D.
Councilor Lewis seconded. Any discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to point out to the public, obviously this is most likely going to get passed. You now will have just a much cleaner process to apply to the naming committee. If there's somebody out there in the public that you believe deserves some recognition, there wasn't really a process besides like emailing the committee chair. So now you'll have this nice form to fill out. It also clearly marks the qualifications, so you'll realize like maybe I'm not going to waste my time because I know they don't necessarily check off the boxes that are part of the requirement. So you can find it online. I don't know if it'll go up there right away or what that process looks like, but it's actually been a culmination, I think, since 2019 they've been trying to nail this down. So it's been an honor working with Councilor Fitzgerald and Mayor Delnicki to get this thing cleaned up and finalized. So hopefully the rest of the public will agree and it'll be much easier. So Mr. Maniscalco, what's like the typical process? So we'll go up there right away?
Yes, Ms. Senator tomorrow will probably work on getting it up on the website.
Oh, wow. Okay, so right away. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to just say for the record, we had 3 resolutions of accepting of the naming of public lands and buildings from the subcommittee. And I do appreciate the fact that the vote was unanimous, that you might have individuals from different parties, whatever, there wasn't a 2-3 or a 3-2. So obviously there was some discussion. Anybody that's known me over this period of time, I can't stand redundant work. And I appreciate when work is done and acknowledging that fact so that we don't need to have, in my opinion, an unnecessary discussion going over what has obviously been going back and forth. And the fact that we had 3 voted unanimously is a big deal. And so I thank whoever is on that committee for that, or that subcommittee, excuse me, for the work and the efforts in that.
Thank you. And at our next meeting, we will have one more resolution to approve a naming. So thank you for that, Mr. King. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to 13L. Councilor King, if you don't mind doing 13L.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution approving refund batch number 2 for 84 refunds totaling $36,491.57. And be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 84 refunds, the total of said refunds being $36,491.57, and as more fully described in Exhibit E.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, through you, can I make a motion to go to recess until PM before our
Before we go, yeah,
public hearing starts. That way we don't have to pause Mr. Balboni's discussion item there.
yeah, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes. like to call the regular meeting back to order. It's 8 o'clock. We will now are going to suspend the regular town council meeting for our public hearing. The public hearing is to receive citizen input on the proposed child care tax abatement. Ms. Senerth, if you can please read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal Enquirer, August 16, 2024, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has set Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Ave, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed child care tax abatement, dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 9th day of August 2024, attested to by Catherine Senerth, Executive Assistant.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the council during this public hearing regarding the proposed child care tax abatement?
Good evening. Am I pushing this button or am I? We're good?
Yeah, you're a tall guy, so you're good.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Robert Michalak, 465 Niederwerfer Road. I gotta put my glasses on. I'd like to start by thanking Deputy Mayor Siracusa for bringing this matter to the council and to the entire council and everyone else present at this point. For your numerous discussions about this over the past few months and all of your work. My wife, Sydney, has been a home child care provider for 28 years. In those 28 years, she has changed thousands of diapers and prepared countless meals. When she first started daycare in 1995, there are at least 20 home child care providers in South Windsor. That list, the list that was circulated here previously showed 9 currently. One of those providers is no longer in business, so we are left with 8. If you look at the ages of the providers in town, it's safe to say that within the next 5 years, there will likely be half the number of home providers still in business. That leaves 4 licensed home-based providers in the town of South Windsor in the next 5 years, potentially, give or take. They're not getting any younger. Make sure my wife's not throwing anything at me. Sorry. Why are licensed home daycare providers important to the town? Many families prefer smaller settings with more personal care. Others prefer a home to a commercial building. Other reasons for preferring home daycare is the lower cost of a home provider. Just last week, and it was great timing, there was a post on one of the South Windsor Facebook pages about the cost of a week of daycare for a 2-year-old at centers in town. I don't know if any of you saw it, but they were in the $400 to $550 per week range for one kid at a center, for one kid. Home daycare providers are significantly less than that. So why are we here? The state currently has a daycare shortage, and they recognized the issue and gave towns the ability to incentivize child care centers with up to 100% tax abatement. Coventry and Ellington are 2 local towns that have made the investment to try and bring new home-based providers to their towns. Coventry had no home daycare providers and recognized the need, and they promptly offered a 100% tax abatement to interested individuals. Ellington met the need with a 50% abatement for licensed providers to help relieve the cost of child care. This incentive can do several things to try and bolster the number of providers in the state and South Windsor. 1, it can incentivize current providers to stay in business longer. At this point, I think we need that. 2, it can incentivize new people to start home daycares. And 3, it can incentivize, this incentive, can try to persuade individuals providing unlicensed daycare to get licensed. Prior to your last meeting, the documents in the July 15th agenda showed a 50% abatement based upon the percent of the property used for daycare as shown on the tax return, and this would go for 5 years. I would argue that this is a reasonable incentive. These abatements wouldn't be going to huge companies with apartments or a warehouse that nobody wants. These are residents providing a very valuable and affordable service for other members of the town. Please keep that in mind. At your last meeting, a $1,000 cap per year was placed on this, as was a 3-year limit. I hate to say this, but that's not going to incentivize anyone to stay in business longer. This won't incentivize new licensed providers to open a business, and it certainly won't appeal to anyone who might be watching children without a license for cash under the table. I fully understand the comparison was made to our volunteer firefighters in town. I fully support them, and I certainly hope the town is never in a situation where they all have retired or are all close to retirement. I believe this is a separate issue that may need further discussion, which I think you all are doing soon. I believe it's in the best interest of the people of the town to keep and incentivize more affordable daycare options in loving child care homes. I urge you to consider a more meaningful 50% abatement with a 5-year duration as per your July 15th agenda in the interest of actively trying to bring more home-based providers to town. Furthermore, I would suggest advertising on your website, Facebook page, and in your social services office about this program to get people thinking and talking about opening a licensed business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come forward?
Let's see if this works. Can you hear me okay? Thank you for bringing this resolution forward. Just to, so you don't get frightened, I don't do daycare. My wife does, and she's the exact opposite of me. She's one of those unique people that just loves children and gave up a career in teaching when we had our youngest son, who ironically you appointed tonight to Planning and Zoning. So I'm just here, and I thank Bob for following through on all this, and Matt for taking a lead on this. I agree with that 5 years versus 3 years. You've opted to put that 3-year stipulation in. The state allows 5 years. I think it would make sense to extend that. And, you know, I think it's universally true that, you know, and I'm going to hopefully safe in saying this, I think any women that do this in town, they're doing it as a labor of love, and it adds to the community just like our firemen do, and I fully support it, and thank you for your positive vote on that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward at this time to speak on the proposed child care tax abatement? Going forward. Okay, at this time, I would like to close the public hearing, and we will take a straw poll. This is a straw poll, not a scientific poll. For all those in favor of the child care tax abatement, please raise your hand.
As it's written.
Those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. We will now resume our regular meeting. We will go back to, excuse me? 13. Yes, 13G, Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution to abate a portion of property taxes for real estate used as a family child care home child care tax abatement. Whereas the Connecticut General Statutes Title 12, Chapter 203, Sections 12-81 LL, effective October 1st, 2022, provides that municipalities have the local option to abate up to 100% of the property taxes due for any tax year for not more than 5 tax years. For any property used in the operation of a child care center, group child care home licensed pursuant to Section 19A-80 of the General Statutes, or a family child care home licensed pursuant to Section 19A-87B of the General Statutes. provided that the property is owned by the person, persons, association, organization, corporation, institution, or agency holding such license. And whereas the Town of South Windsor seeks to support and encourage the operation of licensed family child care home facilities within its jurisdiction, recognizing the essential services they provide to the community. And whereas the Town of South Windsor has the local option to enact such tax abatements to aid family child care home facilities in their operation, thereby fostering a supportive environment for early childhood education and care. And whereas family child care home is defined by Connecticut's General Statutes 19A-77A3 as consisting of a private family home providing care, A, for not more than 6 children, including the provider's own children, not in school full-time, without the presence or assistance of an assistant or substitute staff member approved by the Commissioner of Early Childhood pursuant to Section 19A-87B, present and assisting the provider, or 2, not more than 9 children, including the provider's own children, with the presence and assistance of such approved assistants or substitute staff member, and B, for not less than 3 or more than 12 hours during a 24-hour period, and where care is given on a regularly recurring basis, except that care may be provided in excess of 12 hours, but not more than 72 consecutive hours, to accommodate a need for extended care or intermittent short-term overnight care. During the regular school year, for providers described in subparagraph A1 of the subdivision, a maximum of 3 additional children who are in school full-time, including such provider's own children, shall be permitted, except that if such provider has more than 3 children who are such provider's own children and in school full-time, all of such provider's own children shall be permitted. During the summer months when regular school is not in session, for providers described in subparagraph A1 of this subdivision, a maximum of 3 additional children who are otherwise enrolled in school full-time shall be permitted if there is such an improved assistant or substitute staff member present and assisting such provider, except that 1, if such provider has more than 3 such additional children who are such provider's own children, all of such provider's own children shall be permitted, and 2, such approved assistant or substitute staff member shall not be required if all of such additional children are such provider's own children. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of South Windsor authorizes the assessor, upon application duly approved by the assessor and applicable on the next grand list following such application, to abate 50% of the real property taxes due for the portion of real estate used in the operation of a family child care home as defined herein and licensed pursuant to Section 19A-87B of the Connecticut General Statutes and Section 13 of Public Act 22-81. Provided that such real estate is owned by the person or entity holding such license, this abatement applies only to that portion of the real estate used for the licensed family child care home facility and shall not include personal property such as equipment used in such child care operations. Be it further resolved that the abatement is not transferable to subsequent property owners and starting on the grand list year following an initial application and will be limited to 3 years or the maximum duration allowed by law if less, or until such duration is amended by law or the termination of the child care license, whichever occurs first. Be it further resolved that the maximum amount of any abatement for taxes on real estate used as a family child care home pursuant to this resolution shall be $1,000 per year. Be it further resolved that any application for real property which is not current on its real estate tax payment shall not be approved. Be it further resolved that this program will be managed and overseen by the assessor of the Town of South Windsor to process and to approve or deny applications in accordance with this resolution and any statutory requirements. Be it further resolved that this abatement is effective starting on October 1st, 2024 grand list, and that applicants for such abatement shall submit application on or before September 15th annually in a form as provided by the assessor. Be it further resolved that the Town Council of the Town of South Windsor directs the town manager and assessor to undertake all necessary actions to formalize, announce, and administer this tax abatement program.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Counselor Lewis?
I'd like to make a motion for a brief recess. I would like to discuss this.
Why don't
I'm confused.
Second?
Okay. Call a recess. We have how much recess do you want? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Will be 8:21. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and now we're in discussion. Any discussion, further discussion? Deputy Mayor Saracusa.
I'll let Councilor Fitzgerald go first if you'd like.
Oh,
I just came back from recess.
Sure. Well, my comment is, I know we discussed in length all the items, and I appreciate Attorney Corella for putting this together and Councilor Balboni for somehow reading all that. My hope is that if this does go through as written, that we can obviously amend a resolution if need be. So I'm hoping that regardless of what happens, we can revisit this 6 months from now, 12 months from now. If it is working, well, maybe we should make it a little better and see how much more, or if it's not working, let's see if we can, bump it up to 5 years or 2,500 or get rid of the cap, right? Make the 50%. So regardless of what everybody's thinking here, which I know what everybody's thinking based off of our discussions we've had, my hope is that we can all come up with a consensus that we will compile the data, see if it's working, not working, and we make a commitment to these providers that we're fully ready to make an amendment to this just to see how it's working. So that's all I wanted to say.
thank you. Councilor Fitzgerald?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I guess I have a question first, just because I'm new here. Are we allowed to propose amendments to resolutions as we sit here?
Yes.
Okay, then I would like to propose that we amend the resolution to increase the number of years from 3 to 5. I mean, if we stick with the $1,000 per year limit, which I'm not necessarily, I think that's something that we should definitely, see if it's working, come back and reassess. But, and I don't math, so I don't know if I did this correctly, but with only 8 providers in the town, we're literally talking about $16,000 more to go from 3 years to 5 years with the number of providers that we currently have. So I would like to propose that we make that amendment to change it from 3 years to 5 years.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the resolution from 3 years to 5 years. Any discussion? Councilor King?
Yeah, so I agree, is it Bob, is it? That as somebody that does have a small business, albeit just a music group, you do want to encourage more people to take advantage of that. By the same token, I also understand the fact that, you know what, let's review it, let's make sure, see if it works, so on and so forth, because it's also something that I don't believe in, which is one size fits all. I think every town, regardless, I appreciate looking at what Ellington did and everybody else did, but they are completely different towns, completely, for a number of different reasons, Lord knows. However, I don't want to frustrate anybody, and I think I've said this in previous meetings, that especially after COVID, even my wife and I discussed having something like that because we have a need. I'm the oldest of 7 children. I can appreciate it. I mean, I only love my children, but I can appreciate if somebody else wants to have that type of business. That said, yeah, I do think 3 to 5 is not that big of a deal, especially, again, as the resident said, Bob, if we want to try and encourage and at least show that we are business friendly and want to encourage that. So that's my only comment on that particular point. I do have another question, but as we are currently voting on the friendly amendment to go from not more 3 years to 5 years, I'll leave it at that.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that's a fine idea. Again, my hope is that something like this will kind of educate us and put the feelers out to see how many folks are, I know right now I'd take $1,000 off my taxes. That'd be phenomenal. It's pretty hard times right now. So yeah, I'd be totally okay with that.
Okay, I believe this is a friendly amendment. Do we still have to do a vote on the?
You gotta vote on the amendment first.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment from 5 years to 3 years, say aye.
Flip.
3 to 5, thank you. From 3 years to 5 years. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, the amendment passes. Any further discussion on the resolution? Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for a point of clarification, so as I'm looking at this, I just want to be clear, as it says 1, 2, 3, 4 in the fourth whereas, providing care not more than 6 children, including the provider's own children, not in school full-time, blah, 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 blah. Then later it goes on and says not more than 9 children, including the provider's own children, with the presence and assistance of such approved assistant or substitute. So if I'm reading this correctly, and I just want to make sure, so as long as we have an assistant, a paid assistant and/or substitute, well, I guess it would have to be and substitute, we can have up to 9 children, which will also include the 3. However, if we don't have an assistant or a substitute, then in actuality, if a home provider has 3 children, they can only have 3 more. Is that accurate? So essentially, if that is accurate, I'm just putting this out there. So essentially, somebody could have these children, and we're giving them the tax break for having 3 children. Like, we're not really getting the bang for the buck in regards to children from wherever else being provided for in that home. I know I don't anticipate it, but I just want to put that out there. Again, as the oldest of 7, then that, from what this reads, is that if my mom wanted to have her home business, that she could have the 3 of us in the home, get the 1,000 for the 5 years, however long we were there, preschool, kindergarten, maybe even first grade if she didn't want to put us in, and then there could only be 3 other additional children if she wanted to do this by herself. Am I reading that correctly?
I think so. Attorney Correll?
Essentially, yes. I think the only difference there is that the provider's own children who are not in school full-time. So in other words, children under the age of 5.
Technically.
Right, well, actually, like provider's own children not in school full-time. So you can't have 3 of your own kids and you can have up to 3 of your own children who are under the age of 5 and 3 other children and be a total of 6 and still be in the family child care home. That's, first of all, this is the definition out of state statute.
Okay.
So this is what the State Department of Health and Commission of Early Childhood uses to regulate these family child care homes. So I'm sure there's some nuances here that we're probably missing in terms of how these actually operate, but that's what the definition is. And it's that small family setting. I think what they want to prevent is some mom with 3 young kids bringing on more than 3 additional kids and trying to control this place without any assistance. You see later it says if she has assistance by somebody who's licensed by the Commission of Early Childhood, she can have more.
Right, which I agree with. I get it. I just want to make sure, because sometimes we put things in place and then there's some loophole. And at the end of the day, if somebody says, well, they're not technically in school, like there is nothing that says, unless it's a truancy thing, and I could be way off. I'm just putting it out there in front, history's sake. I have no problem with this, obviously. Voted for it. I've said it more than once. But I just want to make sure now that I'm reading it, I'm just like, all right, let's just make sure that somebody doesn't come in and say, no, I'm not putting my kids in school, I'm going to homeschool, or something to that effect. That's all. But if it's already a general statute, then you've answered the question, and I am completely fine with how this is written. Thank you.
Thank you. All set? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, moving on to 13M, discussion item. Counselor Balboni.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure the format for this, but basically just wanted to, I wish Counselor Carey was here. We've both talked about it, and just talking about reorganizing a lot of the boards and commissions. I get all the emails, I don't know if everybody else does, about all the boards and commissions and whatnot, and I see a lot of them being canceled or whatnot, and mostly due to the fact that they don't have a quorum. I think volunteerism is way down these days, and that's a big problem. So I think that if we actually took a look at the overlapping of all these different boards and commissions, that we should be able to consolidate them to complete the same missions and move forward. But like I said, I'd like to form some sort of a committee, and I'm more than happy to volunteer to work on it. I believe Counselor Carey is as well. I don't want to speak for her, but I know she has talked about it too.
Are you suggesting a subcommittee of the council? So are you looking for, you'll need one from my right side of the aisle, so.
Yes, I would request that one of.
Counselor Fitzgerald volunteering again, or Counselor King?
You got it. I'm positive. Thank you so much.
That would work great.
And you believe that Counselor Carey was,
I'm 90% sure.
okay, we'll wait till she gets back and then we can discuss.
We can thank her for volunteering.
Any, Counselor Lewis?
Yeah, I thank Council Balboni for bringing this up. It's long overdue. We have a lot of redundancy in committees and meetings, people crossing over a lot of the same areas that could be served better, so we can consolidate and do less of a strain on the citizens. I would further suggest that we find one or two people from the community who could also be on this committee. So I would ask us to reach out if maybe we could, Mr. Maniscalco, we could put on the website or saying that we're having this committee and we'd like some town participation in it, because that's our volunteer base. So I think it'd be a good idea to have that perspective. And plus we have some of our seniors who have over the last number of decades that have served on untold committees. And if we can get them to stop telling stories about it all, we can get down to some brass tacks and perhaps, instead of having 35 committees, just making up a number, we can have 17, and it's be more manageable for us and the town. I support it.
I just wanted to say from a functional standpoint, I think for next steps for the council would probably be to get a resolution on the agenda for your next meeting. Hopefully, and just looking at my notes, it looks like 3 council members. It's being suggested 2 community members to look for consolidate boards and committees wherever there's overlap. Does that sound like it, for the most part, would make sense? So we can get a resolution on your next agenda and you guys could vote, and then you would probably find your community members from there. So.
Okay. Got that, Ms. Sanders? You got it? All right, any further discussion? Counselor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have not done the research, and that's why I'm thankful that Councilor Balboni has put this out there in terms of having a committee to review it, a subcommittee, excuse me. My perspective on it was not necessarily that we had a redundancy, although the subcommittee may find that, which I'm fine with. But more so, which is why I asked for us to receive what are all of the resolutions or the ordinances in regards to each one of the committees or commissions, because I believe, and I believe I said this before in our meeting, is that we don't have enough alternates. I think not so much that we don't have enough volunteers. I believe we would probably have more than enough volunteers, but we don't have enough alternates for when certain individuals can't show up. I say that, and the only reason I say that with a little bit more certainty is that it's rare if the WPCA cancels. It's rare if Inland Wetlands cancels because they have at least 2 to 3 alternates. I was one at a certain point. And those alternates usually sit on every meeting, and if somebody doesn't show up, they're usually there. And I think that has, and again, subcommittee will put in the work and say, no, we actually do have some redundancy. I'm cool with that, I get it. But I think that the biggest piece, and I would suggest to the subcommittee to look at that, is if we need to go back over our different ordinances and say that every committee should have at least 2 or 3 alternates. That way, meetings can still be had. Say, for example, during this past summer, it happens every summer. People travel, they're gone, but some don't. But they're not approved, and we don't have alternates, but they're not approved to be on that, and so the meetings get left by the wayside. So that's just something that I want to put out there to the subcommittee when you guys do have this resolution, is approved, so on and so forth, to look at that as well, as opposed to just saying, because we may be surprised that if we do open it up to at least 2 or 3 alternates, that we may surprise ourselves.
Yeah, I believe you're speaking of the Arts Commission that was formed by ordinance, and that has no alternates on it.
Correct. That's one of them that, a lot of our committees or commissions don't. And we have people that do show up because they do care. They want to be a part of this, that, or the other. And so so yes, but that is definitely one of them.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know Councilor King and I, on the previous council, we seem to bring this up every meeting on trying to get a committee, so I'm glad that we're going to get some weight behind it now. So thank you for Councilor Balboni and Councilor Carey and Councilor Fitzgerald to be willing to serve there. To Councilor King's point earlier, talking about the naming committee, which I appreciate, I also hope that we will understand that the 3 of those folks are going to be putting in the time and the effort, and obviously consulting with the committee chairs to get their best input, that when they do bring a recommendation forward, that hopefully we respect all the work that they've done. And of course, if something is outlying so vastly, we'll have a discussion about it. But I think we're all professional up here, and we'll understand that the 3 of them are going to put in some hard work. I would have a little bit reservation about opening it up to the public, just because the topic is having so much trouble with volunteerism. So I don't know if we need to require that, because I think you guys will be discussing, eventually with each board, committee, commission on what they do. So I think it would be best to keep it just the 3 of them, but if everybody else is okay with that, that's just fine. And again, to Councilor King's point, I know I think it was last meeting, about the library board voted on adding alternates. I'm not sure if that was filled, those vacancies were filled yet, but they were running into that same issue, and somebody suggested that they have alternates. So I do think that everyone should have that, because it does seem like those alternates, at least 1 or 2 of them, end up becoming voting members at any given meeting if they show up. So I do think that's something you guys should really look into, adding alternates. But of course, if there are redundancies, or there is just attendance issues for a certain board or committee, and that's the issue, and obviously an alternate won't really help that if it's just all the members aren't showing up. I believe you guys definitely have your work cut out for you, but it's definitely necessary. So thank you for agreeing to take on that role.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To that end, I appreciate where you're coming from, Deputy Mayor. The only thing that occurs to me is we do have a third party, which is the UCP. And I'm not trying to introduce one way or the other, but I do want to say, just for lack of a better word, in transparency sense, and obviously this can be a discussion that, well, we're obviously having now. And then that way, when we do make this resolution, then we can have that discussion to see if that goes in there, because we know during any election cycle, anything could happen. And so if there's a decision to be made, perhaps that is something we want to consider, because since they are a party, as opposed to quote-unquote volunteers from the community, which I don't have a problem with, but I get it, that might make some sense to have that fourth, if you will, or an additional piece just from the two parties that are seated here today.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say that's certainly something to look into. I would say at the very least, the RTC and DTC chairs should be, if they are having a hard time filling vacancies, they should be reaching out to the UCP and do you have anybody willing to serve? And then obviously their respective party will vote on it, and their nominating committees will vote on it. But I do think it would be good to have them reach out, because we are having a hard time. So I know each party can put up whomever they please, correct? So if the UCP has an individual willing to serve, we could appoint somebody to fill that role, or is it kind of case by case?
It's kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on what kind of position you're looking to fill. Some cases you have to fill this, if you're filling a vacancy for a Republican seat that somebody has resigned or has left the commission, then you have to fill it with a Republican. I think for purposes of what you're discussing tonight, you're talking about a subcommittee to look into all of this. And the only rule that you need to follow is your own internal rules, which are you can't appoint more than a bare majority, of any party. So, it's a temporary committee that's only going to last for the remainder of your term here until the next election. It automatically disbands at the end of the election. So there's no UCP members here, not trying to take away from what Councilor King said, because I think it's a valid point, but I don't think you have to look to the UCP to fill this subcommittee for this purpose.
I think what he's saying is having them serve on.
You could fill, right,
boards
you can fill positions with UCP members.
Can they
but
fill a
unless
Republican?
there's a requirement that you have to have a certain bare majority, if there's a minority party member that's left a commission, and you have to fill it with that party to keep that minority status in place. Otherwise you might run afoul of that statute.
Yeah, so maybe that's a perfect addition into adding the alternates, to also put something in there to encourage both committee chairs to, hey, if you're having trouble filling a spot, especially alternates, reach out to the UCP and see if they have anybody involved. So, great idea.
Councilor Balboni?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only other thing that I neglected to mention was that I do understand there are some boards and commissions that are required by the state and some that are required by our charter. Although I know that's in flux at the moment. I'm kind of hoping to hear their report sometime soon. See if any of that is in their suggested changes. But yeah, I just want to make sure that we understand some are required.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, so we'll have the resolution on the next agenda. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 14, passage of ordinance, having none. Public input for any matter. Public input for any matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item over which the council has jurisdiction. The speakers shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Seeing that there is no one here.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilor King.
Only because I don't want to give the appearance as if Mr. Maniscalco, and thank you so much earlier for saying, hey, let me talk to you guys outside. I don't want to give the appearance from this council as if we're subduing anybody's comments. I would love to hear input back and forth or whatever, even if it was just an acknowledgement of, oh, okay, can we put it on the agenda for next time? Just so it doesn't look like you spoke too early, you went outside, now you're not here. That's all. Through you, Madam Mayor, just if there was any feedback.
Sure,
comment, 'cause he
so,
went-
I mean, we discussed the idea that, you know, the gentleman's concern was about the cell tower on Dart Hill. That's an item that's currently in front of the Siting Council at the state of Connecticut. And we discussed the idea that, you know, the town council really has no authority over it. And I think unfortunately there was some confusion on that gentleman's part, thinking that possibly the town council had the ability to make a ruling or decision on something of that nature. So we had that conversation that that's not really within your purview, and the state of Connecticut's put together a body called the Siting Council where, you know, he can come in and, you know, make his comments to them, make sure it's heard, and provide them with his petition, so.
Thank you. You all set, Counselor King? Yes. Okay, thank you. Item 16, communications from the council. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor King can attest to it. I do have Siting Council written down here, so I might as well bring that up now. I have been stopped a number of times and have been called a number of times. A lot of folks are misreading that as the sitting council, like the current council. I wish that I could help, or we all could help with some of these matters, but I don't know if it's, I know you just briefly explained it, Mr. Maniscalco. I don't know if it's yourself or Attorney Corella. If you can give like the 30-second elevator pitch a little more deeply to explain to people really what that Siting Council is doing and how we just kind of have no purview over those issues. Rumor buster. I'd probably stay away from that.
So the Connecticut Siting Council is a regulatory body that approves the siting, the location of certain types of electrical distribution and generation facilities, as well as cell towers, solar panels, things like that. It takes the local jurisdiction over those things out of the control of the local planning and zoning commission. The towns do have input. Local people can participate, but at the end of the day, the siting, the location of these facilities, telecommunications, electrical distribution, and generation is handled at a statewide level with a uniform policy by the Siting Council.
Perfect, thank you. Another thing, Mayor Delnicki pointed out to me early on in the meeting, the improvement in the sound in here has been amazing. So thank you to IT or facilities or a combination of the two. Whoever was involved in that, it's a clear difference sitting up here. I don't know, well, huge crowd out there, can't really ask them, but thank you for doing that. And then the last point is the Wapping Fair being this weekend. I know being a lifelong resident, it was a bummer to hear that it was gonna go away. So I just wanna thank the folks, I think they're the Friends of the Wapping Fair, for taking that on. It sounds like they've made some changes that are gonna help families with young kids as far as saving you a little bit of money with the unlimited rides. But I do wanna just tell the public that this was a group of folks in town that rallied together to make this happen. So make sure if you see them running around like crazy, to thank them if you can, and just be a little bit easy on them too if it's a little bit different than what we've come to get used to. But hopefully this is the start of the continuation of what we've always known as a great fair. So hopefully the weather cooperates. I know last year was torrential thunderstorms pretty much every day. So I hope everybody has a fun time with their families or whoever they attend with, and hope to see you there.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second that. Starts September 5th, goes through the 8th, the Wapping Fair over at the fairgrounds. So yes, they have put a lot of work into it. We have a lot of involvement from the community, been working alongside with them, although they've been putting in the yeoman's work of it. But thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for acknowledging that. You guys see the signs all over. And I do think from the amount of input, feedback from when we first found out that the Wapping Fair was going to be discontinued for things that were outside of our control, the fact that these residents, i.e. to Councilor Balboni's point, volunteers They really stepped up and put in the work, and I think they're definitely going to be, when they have their exit session, a lot of things, lessons learned and such, which is great. But it's also good when you have a community come together as they have and said, no, let's try it. No, this might be out of my field, but let's keep it going. So they put in the work. It's, yes, from September. So it starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on Sunday. And you can see the details on their website. Additionally, I just want to, just a kind note, I appreciate Councilor Balboni's point as well as the Deputy Mayor's point about wanting to understand and get a breakdown of our turnover. The only thing I just want to caution us all on, as well as the public, and this could also be a myth buster, is because I don't know who works in what fields. We just have to be careful from an HR standpoint and quite bluntly, putting people's business out there on the street. It's one thing to say these are the reasons why and so on and so forth, but it can be damaging a whole slew of ways and could go a direction that we don't necessarily want it to go. And at the same time, we have to be respectful of the confidentiality of a potential process. I do agree with the turnover. I think that that's something that, hey, it just is what it is. This is why we've lost, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we have to be respectful of the confidentiality of whatever those reasons were. And for those reasons that people may not be aware of, be careful for what you wish for. So sometimes we have to appreciate, respect, and dare I say trust the individuals that are in their positions to make those kind of decisions on behalf of sometimes even the employee that might have left. So that's just something for us and the public, just to be careful about whatever HR situation might pop up. Finally, and Councilor Fitzgerald and I have spoken about this, I think that I am happy, but at the same time, it was not too long ago that we had a situation in which, well, you know what? I'm going to speak to people like they're not 2 years old. When the Democrats wanted to put somebody to replace, and we had difficulty in doing that, and the votes weren't there for it. At that particular time, and I still don't, I don't have a problem with the way that things have been done, although things can always change. However, the comment, dare I say, of the chair of the RTC said, bluntly, multiple times, if someone loses an election, they should not be on an elected position. We can go back to the minutes. He said that more than a number of times. I disagreed with that. I think that if a committee, which is how it's always been, says this is who we want to represent us, regardless of the situation, then it's up to us to discuss it. Hopefully it's not a political thing, but I do believe at that particular time that there was a political piece that was being played. And I am thankful in this case that that was not. I do know Miguel, and I'm thankful that he is literally stepping up into this position. I do think that it could have gone a whole slew of ways. We could have brought that up, but that is not what we are elected to do. We're elected to do the business for the benefit of the residents of South Windsor. And if to do something otherwise, it's just a tit for tat. And I'm thankful that we did not go down that route. And I'm prayerful that we don't continue to go down that route. Whether I agree or disagree with the nominee that is put in front of us, it's never going to be, I pray it will never be personal. Let it be for the betterment of the town of South Windsor. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Just be careful. We teach our children, or something that we learned a long time ago, be careful or think before you speak, because you never know how that could come back. And that was said that if somebody loses an election, that they should not be on. And we could have taken that and said, well, wait a minute, you guys said that. He was the leader of the Republican Town Committee. He spoke on behalf. So what are we doing here? We don't believe that. As far as we're concerned, unless there is something that's just completely egregious, the committee decided it, let's vote on it, and let's move forward and let's do the business of the town of South Windsor. And I'm thankful that we did that as one town council for South Windsor. Again, I've always said it, and I'll leave it here. We can agree to disagree, but in regards to what we need to do to move forward, let's leave all that crap outside and let's make decisions that benefit the town of South Windsor. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor King. Councilor Balboni?
So I'm probably going to say something I'm going to regret, but that's kind of hypocritical coming from you with the way you were voting on the previous council for two of the current members of this town council that were more than qualified for every position they were put up for. And I believe the same thing was said by the Democrats about people that lost an election were not eligible to be appointed to said position. Me being one of them, I also did not take any of it personal and was more than happy to welcome Maura onto the town council. Again, I don't take it personal, and I would just like to make sure that everyone knows that every vote I do up here has to do with what I feel is best for the town of South Windsor that I've lived in for 54 years.
Thank you, Councilor Balboni. Any further communications? Seeing none, moving on to item 17, Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session and invite Town Manager Michael Maniscalco, Assistant Town Manager Mr. Scott Roberts, and Attorney Richard Corella to discuss item 17A, Attorney-Client Privilege, Shank Road, Town Attorney Rich Corella to be present, and 17B to discuss tax fixing agreements with Starline Development and Esteem Manufacturing.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, seeing none. And we will be adjourning this town council meeting from executive session, and we will not be returning to this location. So everyone have a good evening. Thank you.